Hello students, how are you? Today again we are with Aristotle's Poetics, and today we shall see an analysis of chapter 6. We will discuss in this chapter about the definition of tragedy and its formative parts. Aristotle has described the definition of tragedy and which are the formative parts of tragedy in this chapter. So let us first have the definition of tragedy. As we know that this chapter is the core of the poetics, because earlier we also discussed that the poetics is basically concerned with the tragedy. Aristotle discusses the various aspects of tragedies in his poetics. So this chapter, because it tells us about the definition of tragedy as well as about the formative parts or the essential parts of tragedies in this chapter. So let us see the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle. What Aristotle says about tragedy. He says, I quote, a tragedy then is the imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, each kind brought in separately in the separate parts of the work, in the form of action and not in a narrative form, with incidents arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish the catharsis of such emotions. So these are the translated lines or the words of Aristotle's Poetics of the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle. So let's have a discussion with this definition. In the last chapters, what we saw? We saw that Aristotle describes arts which differ from one another in the objects imitated, in the medium employed, and in the mode or manner of imitations. That is, all arts are or can be differentiated on the basis of the objects that has been imitated in the art, or the medium which have been employed, and the mode or the manner of imitation that has been employed in that art. So the art can be differentiated. That is what we have already seen in the previous chapters. Now in this definition, he shows, what he shows? That the object imitated by tragedy is an action or piece of life of serious interest. So the object which is imitated in a tragedy is nothing but that is an action of life, piece of life, and which is of serious interest, which is not a normal action, which is not a usual action, which is not a normal piece of life, but it has some serious interest. So this is imitated by tragedy. And this action is complete in itself. This action, another characteristics, that is having magnitude. It means the action is long enough or the size of the action is enough which can direct the change in the fortunes of the tragic hero. That is the duration of tragedy. The duration of this art is long enough which can express or which can convey the change of the fortunes in the life of tragic hero. So from the happiness to unhappiness, from happy beginning to sad ending. This can be covered in that action or in that tragedy. It means that should have appropriate or the proportionate magnitude. Then what else? That the action should be serious enough. It cannot be trivial. It cannot be, because the trivial is for the comedy, but tragedy is the serious one. So the action should also be serious one. So this is what about the object that is imitated, and the object imitates the action. And what kind of action? Action which is the serious, which has the proportionate magnitude, which is complete, or which can arouse serious interest. So that kind of an action is imitated, or that is the object of a tragedy according to Aristotle. And in this definition that he has given, we have all these things. The second thing he talks about tragedy is the medium. Medium means that is the medium employed is a language, or which is embellished by all decorations such as melody and poetic diction. So the action is the tragedy, and this tragedy or this action is employed through the medium of language, through the medium of diction, through the medium of melody. That is, it can be decorated with melodious songs, with melodious words, as well as the diction, that is using the different kind of figures of speech, means decorative language in the tragedy. So the medium is here language. And when he describes or talks about the manner of imitation, he says that tragedy is dramatic. That is, the story is not to be told by narration, but essential characters are acting it out. So it is dramatic. The action is there, and the characters, personae are acting in it. It is not narrated by someone, because we have already seen that the narration is only in the epic. But in tragedy, we don't have narration. We have the actions done by characters. So the manner of imitation of tragedy is dramatic. Then he says that what else tragedy is. So he says the function of tragedy. What can be the function of tragedy? And he says this representation arouse pity and fear in the audience. So tragedy, the imitation of art, that is tragedy in literature or in poetry, arouse pity and fear in the mind and heart of the audience. This is the basic, main and essential function of any tragedy or any such kind of representation or action. Or the action which is being done in a tragedy must arouse pity and fear in the audience. And these emotions, what these emotions do? these emotions actually clears or cleans or produces a sense of pleasurable relief to the audience. And here Aristotle names it as catharsis. So the tragedy produces catharsis, that is purgation of the emotions. That is how the audience are aroused with pity and fear. But this pity and fear does not create any kind of tension in the mind of the audience. But after having seen the whole play or the drama or the tragedy, the audience comes out from the theater with a relaxed mood. This is what he calls purgation of emotions. This is what he calls catharsis, the main function of the tragedy. Now we should give a look what Plato, although in earlier chapters we have already discussed that Plato was more emotional than Aristotle, but he always discouraged such emotions in the art, specifically in the tragedy. Although he was more emotional, but he always discouraged, because he says that it might be dangerous effect on human nature. Plato said that it might be very dangerous effect on human nature. But here Aristotle is very much different from Plato's idea. He, realizing the risk of repression, even realizing the risk of repression, Aristotle says that this effect is not only pleasurable but also beneficial. So Plato was against the emotional, against the emotions that are aroused by tragedy or by the art, but Aristotle is in favor that it is the art which arouse the emotions and pity in the audience, and this effect is pleasurable as well as beneficial also. It does not create repression in the audience according to Aristotle. Then Aristotle says also that tragedy provides catharsis, as I told you, a good clearance of emotions which might save us from psychic distress by providing an emotional outlet. So here Aristotle favors the emotions aroused by the tragedy, and because these emotions are aroused, it does not mean that the audience are in tense or the audience are in depression, but instead these emotions, once they come out, once they are aroused, they give the clearance of the emotions, and they save us from the psychic distress. That is, we feel the relax, the audience feel the relief when they come out from the theater after having seen the tragedy or the drama. So this is the basic difference between Aristotle and Plato's views regarding the emotions aroused by tragedy. Here we have an example, and example here Aristotle quotes in this chapter is not from any other place but from Plato himself. Plato has also said that the baby is crying. We also see this, we can also feel this example, that the baby is crying. What we do? We don't prescribe them quietness. We don't say them keep quiet, keep calm. But what we do? We sing to them, we rock to them, and then what we see? That the baby sleeps. Baby sleeps. So, we are not saying the baby which is crying that please keep quiet, be calm, but we sing to them, we rock to them, and we then see that the baby sleeps. So this is the example that Aristotle takes up from Plato, and he agrees with this example, and he says that let's see, these are the external agitations. And what are the external agitations in this example? That is, you are rocking the baby, you are singing song to him. These are the external agitations. You are making also more loud. The baby is also crying and you are also singing. But it produces peace and calm because the child sleeps. Therefore, he agrees this view and he calls it a good cry. In his definition, he calls it a good cry, that is the purgative. Purgative, catharsis. Catharsis means purgative of emotions. Pity and fear is there, but they give the relax to the mind and heart of the audience. So he says again that the excitement of tragedy provides a pleasurable relief for our feeling, and we feel all the better for it, and we leave the theatre in peace of mind, all passions spent. So this is what we have discussed. So this was the definition of tragedy given by Aristotle in this chapter. Now what else is there in this chapter? Aristotle describes the formative parts of tragedy. And what are they? He says that there are 6 constituent parts of any tragedy according to him. The number 1 is plot. Plot can be said as piece of life, that is the human actions or experiences. Then we have the characters. To them he calls dramatis personae. Third, the thoughts which they express, which the characters express individual qualities. The fourth one is diction. Fifth is melody, and sixth is spectacle. These are the 6 constituent parts of tragedy according to Aristotle. Out of these 6, first 3, that is plot, characters and thoughts, are concerned with the object imitated. So the 3 parts of tragedy are related to the object, that is to the action, because the object of imitation is the action. And the next 2, melody and diction, they are the means of imitations employed. So the means is here language. So in language we have the melody, we have the rhythm, we have the songs, we have the diction, the words which are employed in a tragedy. So these 2 are the parts of the means of imitations. And the last one, spectacle, is the mode of imitation by which the tragedy is presented on the stage for audience. So that is all kind of decoration on the stage and how the drama and the play is played on the stage, that is included into spectacle. So in this way he gives us the 6 parts of the tragedy. Now he says that plot, the number 1 part of tragedy, this is the most important, this is the soul of tragedy according to Aristotle. And he gives stress on plot, and later on in next chapters we will have a detailed discussion on plot construction. Then he says, no presentation of character or degree of poetic and theoretical brilliance can make a successful tragedy, because tragedy is the essence of a story. So the story is important according to him. Plot is important. Characters are secondary and other devices are also secondary. So for a successful tragedy, the essence of a story, that is a plot, is must, and that should be strong enough according to him. In the same way, we can have no picture without some sort of shape or design. So there must be some kind of shape, design, some kind of the story, then only other things can be created. So the plot is here very much important in tragedy. As I told you, the Poetics, the book written by Aristotle, runs on the primary importance of plot, which is the main subject of Aristotle's discussion and as well as ours. We will also discuss about plot in the next videos or next lectures. There are many terms which have been used by Aristotle in this chapter. We have already seen some of them in the definition of tragedy. So words like serious, magnitude, catharsis, etc. have been differently interpreted by different critics. So the different critics have given the different views regarding these words. So what is here serious means according to Aristotle? So different interpretations are there. What is magnitude? What is catharsis? So far our discussion is concerned, we have taken the meaning of all these words. Serious means serious action, not the normal action of life. Tragedy represents the serious action. Tragedy magnitude, that is, has a proportionate length and size so that the story can be presented properly, or the story can be completely shown. And the catharsis, as we have already discussed, that is about the pity and fear emotions, that is the purgative of the emotions. Here it should also be noted that thought, because he also talks about the thought, that is the third part of tragedy. In the sense of Greek word which Aristotle has used here, it means all that is expressed by the use of words. So the use of words, the dialogues, the words spoken by the characters in the play or in the tragedy are here thoughts according to Aristotle. Indeed, a knowledge of Greek language and a usage is unavoidable for precise understanding of the poetics. So if we want to understand the poetics in detail, seriously, we must have a knowledge of Greek language as well as of the usage. Then only we can understand the essence or the real views or ideas of Aristotle spoken in the poetics or written in the poetics. We are here doing our analysis on the basis of the translation of the poetics done by different writers, eminent writers and critics, and as we have taken the translation of Bywater. So this is what for today we have discussed the definition of tragedy and its formative parts. In next lecture we will have about the plot construction. Till then, thank you very much. Bye bye. Okay.